Now, former President Goodluck Jonathan said Inec vote can't count correctly. He made this allegation, and now we are having our guest Obeweh Madubuchi, who is joining us live from Kaduna. He's a public affairs commentator and founder of Reset Nigeria. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
All right. So very recently, former President Goodluck Jonathan said INEC's vote can't count correctly. What are your thoughts on this statement?
Okay, first of all, I think we need to look at the historical background of why the former president is saying that. If you look at, let's say, the makeup of the National Assembly, more than 50% of the lawmakers there are there because the courts have kept them there. For instance, very recently you saw the furrow at the National Assembly, especially the Senate, where the Senate President and the Senator representing Togi had a squabble, where the Senate President felt disrespected. One of the issues that have come up about that disrespect is the fact that the Senate President himself did not contest the election to even be a senator. The same thing with former Senate President Lawal, the one from Yobe. So by the makeup of Nigeria as it is today, INEC has not been able to translate its policies and strategy into electing credible people in the various political offices in Nigeria. What we have today is where the court are the one instituting. That's one. Then secondly is the fact that the electoral law in Nigeria has come under serious fire. We have had the Supreme Court overturning most of the provisions of the Electoral Act. So if you have a system like that, except it is reformed, except the policies are strengthened in such a way that most of the policies will be in direct consonance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic, it is very unlikely that INEC will be able to conduct credible election in Nigeria.
Okay, now talking about credibility, we know that INEC introduced technology to end this credibility and end multiple voting. Is it that this might not be effective enough to assure people that really vote would count with the use of technology to enhance and give our voting credibility in Nigeria?
Okay, a perfect example is the last general election of 25th February 2023, where in spite of all the technologies deployed, there were questions about the presidential election, where especially the result of the presidential election could not be uploaded to the portal. So that's one stark example that technology cannot solve it all, except there is an attitudinal change of the people implementing this technology. I always tell people that it's not really the problem of INEC. It is the breakdown of values and behaviors among citizens of Nigeria. Because whoever you see in INEC today is somebody's uncle or brother. So except we have a society that values behavioral pattern and characters, we are likely to continue to see people who will continue to manipulate the electoral system, whether you introduce technology or not. So technology introduction must go in consonant with reform attitude and values of the people implementing it. Apart from that, it's human beings that manipulate technology. And for now, that is what we are seeing.
Okay, all right. So from your point of view, how do you think the entire electoral process could be addressed for future elections to give us that credibility that the people really need and crave at this time?
Okay, so the starting point is that we've had commissions instituted by previous government to look at our electoral jurisprudence and see where amendments can be made. We have the WES report, we have the 2014 National Conference. So if we can put those reports together and call another strategic meeting to see how to strengthen some of these recommendations and put them side by side into our Electoral Act and amend the necessary provisions, because what we have today is the fact that you have an Electoral Act that is talking A, then you have the Constitution that is talking B. So when it gets to the courts, as you know, our law says that any other law that contravenes any section of the Constitution will be declared null and void, and that's what you are having. So Except we have an electoral act and a constitution that work hand in hand, it will be very difficult. So, but we have not lost. We have a perfect opportunity. The National Assembly is already going through a constitutional reform. I think it's time for stakeholders to come together, look at all the problems. When you have issues, especially the ones that emanated from the last general election, it is a building block for you to make amendment to rebuild what is lost. It's not to stay and cry foul. It's for the whole Nigerians to come together and see how to reform this process to make it credible and make it show the will of the people. But more importantly, I think that there should be a constitutional amendment that will stop the courts from instituting people into political positions. Where elections are questionable and the courts feel that something is wrong, they should send everybody back to the poll so that all representatives in any political office will be a reflection of the wills of the citizens of Nigeria, not the wills of the courts.
Your views with us on the news. Thank you for being a part of our news at this time.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
All right, and that's Obeweh Lawrence Madubuchi, a public affairs commentator.